It's been incredible to be able to talk to thousands of students every year and get them excited about what people with disabilities can do and not focused on what we can't do, even though we tell them, some things, some obstacles that are true, like me and driving, for example. You don't want a totally blind guy driving, but I tell them how I get to work every day. I tell them what my future is in a couple of years with possibly a self-driving car that might be able to take me from point A to B. But these students get excited about knowing that they don't have to feel sorry for us. And so I'll ask them at the end, I'll say, so do you feel sorry for me? And they'll say, no. And it's just music to my ears. Every time I get to hear a new group go from sympathy to empathy, it's a conversion that we really take so much pleasure in, and we realize that we're guiding the future. And it's so important to be a lifetime trailblazer because there's always somebody who doesn't know any better, somebody who hasn't met a person blind or a person with a disability that we actually get to exhibit in a positive way. And that's the nice thing about we don't want anybody feeling sorry for us, and that's why To Be Like Me exists.
Welcome to Season 8 of the More Than Sunday podcast. I'm your host, Rohini Drake, and I'm on staff here at First United Methodist Church Richardson. And this season, we're talking to influencers, and not necessarily just our YouTube influencers or TikTok influencers that you may think of, but influencers who are doing positive things in their communities. And today, we are so lucky to be joined by two people from the organization To Be Like Me. We have Hollis Owens, who is the founder of To Be Like Me, and Blake Lindsay.
Great to be here. What a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
We're so glad that you took the time to have this conversation about how y'all are being influencers in the community. So Hollis is the founder of To Be Like Me. Will you give us some history and context on what inspired you to even found this organization?
Sure. So first of all, our program, just to get everyone on the same page, we are a disability awareness program. We're a field trip destination for students. So students spend 2 hours with us and we educate them about disabilities. Our mission is to encourage empathy, kindness, and inclusion through disability awareness programs led by people living with disabilities. We call them our leaders. Stands for Leaders in Education and Advocacy for Disabilities. We believe that the education should be delivered directly from those people living with disabilities. Kind of goes back to the nothing about us without us, which was coined during the disability rights movement. And so that's the way it should be. How was it founded? Well, my background is actually in medicine. I was a physical therapist for about 20 years, and my area of focus was in pediatrics. And so as a physical therapist, one of the things we ask our patients first is, what do you want to be able to do with, once our therapy is finished? What are your goals? And so many times, patients and families would say things like, I just want to be able to navigate school, or I want to be able to get through a whole airplane ride, or I want to be able to get in and out of buildings like banks and just other local businesses. I want to be able to sit in a restaurant comfortably and be able to talk to the waiter. Just so many, just really activities of daily living. And in order to help my patients navigate through that, I had to reach out to people in the community and educate them on how to embrace people with disabilities. And I realized that this was really missing. There was a disconnect. Many people in the community just didn't understand how to do that, how to embrace, and how to engage people with disabilities. And so I think that through educating students and teachers, we have an opportunity not only to equip these students to be kind and empathetic peers as they go through school, but they are also the future business owners, teachers, lawmakers, and community members. So we truly have a chance to change the way people view disabilities and make their communities more accessible. I love treating patients, but I really think I'm meant to be on this other side, which is really helping the community embrace people with disabilities.
Well, and I'd like to just personally thank you for seeing that need and creating something to meet that need, because I hear it in your voice and I hear it in your description that it's needed and it is human and it is something that we can all benefit from. And my two daughters did this program during COVID, and just the change it made in their young lives and in the conversations that they had and in the questions they had, they felt like they had permission to ask, has just made such a difference. So I recognize personally that it was needed for them, and they're going to carry that with them moving forward. And so Blake, as we mentioned, you're a leader in the To Be Like Me organization. Tell me more about what your role as a leader entails and what it is that you do.
Well, I'm so glad I got to meet Hollis around 4 years ago, because she told me her passion and I just really got excited about it. And she mentioned the future, the fact that we're really guiding people, our future leaders. And it's so exciting because the students show up and they're very curious, but they're also admitting to me in many instances that they're kind of feeling sorry for us a little bit at the beginning. But at the end of the program, in just a couple hours, they have a brand new attitude about people with disabilities. They hear solutions. They hear stories. They get to be around us and ask us questions. And so we're literally changing their minds from feeling sorry for us, which is easy to do. This is really where To Be Like Me has made me better, because I admit that when I meet people with various disabilities that are not my own, for a moment I feel sorry for them until I find out those solutions and that they're living their life to the fullest every day, like I am. And so it's been incredible to be able to talk to thousands of students every year and get them excited about what people with disabilities can do, and not focused on what we can't do, even though we tell them, some things, some obstacles that are true, like me and driving, for example. You don't want a totally blind guy driving, but I tell them how I get to work every day. I tell them what my future is in a couple of years with possibly a self-driving car that might be able to take me from point A to B. But these students get excited about knowing that they don't have to feel sorry for us. And so I'll ask them at the end, I'll say, so do you feel sorry for me? And they'll say, no. And it's just music to my ears every time I get to hear a new group go from sympathy to empathy. It's a conversion that we really take so much pleasure in, and we realize that we're guiding the future. And it's so important to be a lifetime trailblazer, because there's always somebody who doesn't know any better, somebody who hasn't met a person blind or a person with a disability that we actually get to exhibit in a positive way. And that's the nice thing about we don't want anybody feeling sorry for us. And that's why To Be Like Me exists. And we're actually communicating with the people with the disabilities to say, hey, here's my solutions. What do you think of this? And they have questions of their own that they get answered. So it's tremendous.
That's wonderful. And it's so interesting to hear also that you were able to, even as a leader, hear stories from people with different disabilities from your own and learn from them. And what you just said about going from sympathy to empathy is so powerful. So I'm curious, what are the types of, I guess you mentioned a little bit about the stories that you're able to share or examples from your own life, but what are things that you encourage the students to do? And are you giving them permission to ask questions of leaders or people with disabilities?
We tell them a lot of great things about our lives and what we're currently doing as far as our employment. I get to work with Envision Dallas, and of course we hire people who are blind and visually impaired to be able to manufacture and do call center work and all kinds of cool stuff at Envision Dallas. But we only have one focused disability, which is blindness. And with To Be Like Me, we really get to discover so many. And so we share a lot of stories with the students. They start asking us questions, and they want to know all about, how do you do your job? How do you get dressed every day and that kind of thing. And so we're able to really challenge them. But the fun part for me is I want people to be able to guide a person who's blind, because so often people that I get to speak with, I show them how to guide a person who's blind. And the next thing they know, within 6 months, it seems, they'll see somebody in public who's blind that might be looking for a drinking fountain, a restroom, a place to sit. And so now that person who went to Be Like Me knows exactly how to say, hi, my name's whatever your name is, and I just wanted to make a new friend, and I wanted you to know that I've been around a person who's blind before, and I can guide you if you need any help from me, but I just wanted to meet you. And so it's a real casual conversation that I encourage them. I inspire them every time to begin a conversation, introduce themselves, and just be excited to meet somebody with a disability that they just learned about, because that empathy and relatability from the knowledge that they gained is in full effect. And so they're able to feel comfortable around that person with a disability, whereas beforehand, people just don't feel real comfortable around a person with a disability until they know more about it.
No, and I think that's so true, is just wanting to be helpful, wanting to be compassionate, and just treat everybody as we would like to be treated, but we don't always know what we should say or what we could say. So just to approach them and have words, just give people tools to be able to do that. And doing it, Hollis, like you said, at a young age is so helpful to the development and to what we can accomplish together and how we can be better together. I wanted to ask you too, Hollis. So I know that you train students, I know that you train teachers, and I wondered if you could share stories from students or teachers that you've heard that, where they say, like, I'm so glad that I came here because this has happened now in our lives.
There are so many stories. One exciting thing we've been able to do since COVID, we've been able to gather data pre and post field trips from our students and teachers. And that has allowed us to see change, not only in knowledge about disabilities, but also attitude toward people with disabilities, and even some data on level of empathy. And what we've seen just amazing results kind of across the board in knowledge, but the attitudinal changes are so incredibly, profound. The teachers, 30 days after a program, report that their students are showing more acts of kindness. They're working better in groups, and overall behavior in the classroom has improved. And so, when we put out our schedule for the following year to sign up, teachers are signing up again to make sure that their class gets there. And I think that says a lot. So it's showing us that through this disability awareness education, we are inspiring kindness and changing the climate of classrooms. So that's exciting. Not only are we breaking the barrier in regard to being able to open up and really engage people with differences in the classroom environment, we're also seeing that kindness and empathy change, which I'm so happy about. And they will carry that with them throughout. Our target age is 4th, 5th grade. And so it's just a great age to learn that and to practice it. We're kind of the catalyst. Okay, now you are a part of the ripple effect, so keep it up. So we've heard a lot about that from teachers, but we've also heard from students who actually have disabilities and they're in classrooms, which 1 in 5 students in any classroom has a disability. It may not be visible, but the likelihood is there are 3 or 4 kids in every classroom living with a disability. And so when they go through our program, they really pick up self-compassion from learning from our leaders. And so we hear from parents of students with disabilities. Parents are telling us that their students find empowerment, they find advocacy, and self-compassion when they go through our program. And sometimes kids will raise their hand during a program and say, this is what I deal with on a daily basis, or, I have dyslexia, or whatever it is. So it really does kind of open up conversation in classrooms and really provide those students with a sense of belonging when we do that. So those are just a few stories.
To me, like the word that keeps going through my mind is like magical. It feels magical. Like there's this opening of a conversation to like spur all of this growth and all of this. In some places, it sounds like almost healing to say like, oh yes, I'm seen because you have identified or recognized this in me. And there are people that are willing to talk about it and say like, here's how we can have conversations. And I love to hear that. And it feels very magical. And Blake, I want to ask you kind of about, as you met Hollis 4 years ago, you've become a leader. What are some of the stories that you've had, like in your trainings or in your leading groups, that have caused you to say, like, yes, this program has been so valuable to me, or I'm going to continue doing this for X number of years because I don't want to quit?
Well, observing that transformation, going from sympathy to empathy is pretty incredible because we really hear it a lot. And so that's one of the main values that I get, but also all the people in our family to be like me. We get together for different times. Sometimes we'll go swimming at Hollis's in the summertime. And she just really is a family person and treats us like extended family. And so I've gotten to learn about a lot of disabilities that I had no idea about, like autism I didn't know much about, and just different ones that we have that are so well expressed that I like these people so much now. And at first, I was a little not apprehensive. I really was looking forward to knowing more about them. But I think there is just a slight bit of discomfort for the first 5 or 10 minutes. And then before you know it, you're like family and you got this complete comprehension of what their disability really is and what it's not. And so that's what we aim for in our own lives as well. I think that adults also need this training because a lot of times we'll have a community day, and we'll have those a few times a year. So we have adults come. And I think that they learn as much value as the kiddos, but the benefit in the kiddos, again, is our future. The fact that they're going to be able to be trailblazers with us from here on out, which will really be great. And I think as To Be Like Me grows and we talk to more and more, then, that ripple effect that Hollis talks about will definitely be in full effect here in 20, 30 years. Can you imagine how many tens of thousands of people will be helping us at that point by getting out the right message and a positive message?
I'm imagining it, and it's very exciting to think about that. This organization that you started, the potential for growth. So here at First United Methodist Church Richardson, I know there's questions of like, okay, as I'm listening to this, and I want to be more empathetic and move from that sympathy to empathy. What are practical steps or things that we could do here as a church body, as a church community, that is more inclusive for those with disabilities? Like, what are the things that we should start now doing?
I think one of the first thing that comes to mind is in a church, you want to know that you belong. And in order to create that feeling for each and every person, so if we're talking about people with disabilities, they want to be able to access the building, to know that they belong. And so to know that there's been thought put into access, I think that is really step number one, accessibility, making sure that the facility is accessible. And number two, I would say ask your congregation, ask your family, your church family, maybe even create a group that meets and you ask them, what can we do to make sure that everyone knows that they belong? And so asking is always a good thing. Asking people living with a disability what changes you can make. That's what we do. We have a sounding board and we ask our leaders about everything. Every decision we ask them. And so they help us. But I think belonging is the most important thing. What can we do so you know that you belong here? So
I think most churches' sense of friendliness really goes a long, long way. And when you can just back it up with, hey, Blake, I'm so glad you're here today. Is there anything that I can do for you? And then I'll immediately tell you, no, but I sure appreciate you coming by to say hello. That means a lot to me. And in my case, I like visual description of different things. I went to the Lover's Lane Methodist Church, United Methodist Church yesterday, where they had a big concert. And so my wife, Jennifer, was explaining these beautiful stained glass windows that were really tall and that kind of thing. She knows I like visual description of my surroundings. That's always fun as far as being blind. But I just think that that whole friendliness that most churches fortunately have, because, you're here to celebrate Jesus Christ. So you've got that in you, and so that comes through. And I think anybody with a disability just feels warmed by that.
That all the things that you're saying feel like they should be intuitive, but hearing it just feels like, oh, thank you for letting me know. I don't know why I would feel afraid, but I do feel afraid to say, like maybe people just want to be left alone. Sometimes I just want to be left alone and, don't bother with me, but it feels like you're giving permission to just encounter people as people.
Absolutely. And, when I say accessibility, I don't just mean like the physical barriers. They're, like Blake was saying, just that personal interaction, captions on videos. There are things that are just, if you think about communication, what levels can we provide in terms of like layers of communication, so that everyone can access the information? I think that's another good thing to think about.
That is. The layers of communication is not often like what we have conversations about, but this is helpful to know that we should be having these conversations.
Well, and universal design is designing so that everyone can have access. And ultimately, that means that it's helpful for every person. Blake, I know you like to talk to the kids about the iPhone and the...
I do.
I tell
you.
The access, just in thinking about this is one of the tools that was created.
Yep, I tell him about Steve Jobs just a little bit as far as him wanting everything to be accessible. But the fact that I can email, I can text, I can get driving and walking directions, I can have a money reader app to help me organize my billfold. When people hand me a bunch of cash, I can get it organized very quickly. I can get a virtual sighted guide called Be My Eyes. There's an app on this phone. And so there's just a lot of accessibility through that one device. They always ask me what is the most enjoyable one that I've had so far, the most useful. And certainly iPhone comes to mind in my life over the last 10 or 11 years. So they like to see that, but they also like the old school stuff, like my Perkins Braille writer that looks like a 1940 kind of a typewriter. It makes a lot of racket, but I use it every day, and I like it, and I show them why. And I love to tell them the story about Louis Braille and how, our great-grandparents are always saying turn lemons into lemonade, and how his whole life story about how he went blind from an accident in his dad's leather workshop, got poked in the eye, became infected, spread to his other eye. Bad news, except look at the victories, the trailblazing worldwide, that Louis Braille got to do. And so the Lord, obviously had a lot of purposes in mind for his blindness. The fact that he came up with a tactile way for me to read and write every day, and he became a professor and a musician. So in that short 43 years that Louis lived, he had a purpose. Huge.
That is so fascinating. I didn't know that story, but yes, we are grateful for that and grateful for that story about Louis.
Me too.
Well, and Hollis, I have one last question. As we kind of talked about, the founding of To Be Like Me and currently what's happening, can you give us some insight into what your vision is for the future and how To Be Like Me may be growing?
Of course. So our big next step is to actually sort of go deeper into our Dallas community. In order to do that, we need to have our own space because right now we really are in 2 different locations, just 2 days a week. So one location in Dallas at the Hollis and Family Activity Center, and one location in Richardson at Network of Community Ministries. But that only limits our field trips to only 2 days a week. And we are booked up through April this school year. Wow. And so we are in need of space. And so really our goal in the next 3 3 years is to have our own space. And I think that will help us in a number of ways. It will provide a place for our leaders to be and to work more hours during the week, because many of them are paid employees with us. They find purpose in their work, and many of them want to be able to do more programs. And so having our own space will allow that. And then it will also allow us to work with more students, which is really important. We're also getting asked to do a lot of service consultants for universal design, for, how do we make our business more inclusive and more engaging for all of our employees. And so I also see us doing some of that consulting, because our leaders are amazing in that area. So I see us also kind of moving into that consulting space. But we need our own space in order to do that. So there will be a To Be Like Me location, like our own space one day. So that's really what I have my eye on right now.
That's exciting. That's exciting to hear. And as a fan of the work that you do, I am looking forward to what the next 3 years bring, and the growth and the community impact that you continue to have, and the influence that you both have and your leaders and staff have. So Hollis and Blake, thank you so much for taking the time today to share this, and how you both are influencers in the community. And again, just so grateful personally for the work that you do and the commitment you have to this type of education. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you for your excellent questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
And thank you for listening to this episode of the More Than Sunday podcast. And we hope that you visit our website at FUMCR.com/morethansunday, where we'll include links to the To Be Like Me organization, where you can find out more information about how you may be able to get involved or support, or just find out more information, because their website is a wealth of good knowledge. And we hope you join us again next week for another episode with some more influencers that we hope you join us for. Thanks again for listening, and we'll hope to see you next week.